Chinese President Xi Jinping. He is back in Beijing after a three-nation tour of Southeast Asia. The visits to Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia fostered new partnerships with China, with more than 100 agreements signed. High-quality Belt and Road cooperation was also a key point, and we want to get some broader insight into President Xi's Southeast Asian tour. For that, we turn to Einar Tangen. He's a senior fellow at the Taihe Institute and the founder of the Asia Narratives Substack. Einar, thanks for coming on. Symbolically, how important has this tour President Xi taken been? What's the message he's sending to his neighbors, to the world, and frankly, to the United States?
Well, yeah, but remember, this was planned long before Washington's most recent tariffs, and this is aimed at the future. This is, as they've said, neighborhood politics, and really represents continuity, with the Belt and Road Initiative over the chaos that's being created by Washington with these very inexplicable tariffs. So it's all about deepening traditional ties and expanding practical cooperation. The common phrase was building a community with a shared future based on mutual respect, win-win cooperation, shared development. You covered a lot of it, but it's more than just economic. It was emphasizing that there's a shared sense through culture, etc., and a long-standing, very predictable way of dealing with each other as opposed to what's happening now.
Yeah, the trip was also very functional. The president had a very successful trip to Cambodia, for example, calling that relationship, quote, ironclad, Malaysia and Vietnam as well. What were some of the trade win-wins accomplished there? Greater dominance in aviation is an area Beijing is, for example, pushing for, and Malaysia is a growing market for Chinese planes.
Yeah, I mean, you could go down the list, Vietnam, Malaysia. It's all about strengthening bilateral relations and cooperation. But as I was saying earlier, it's all about practical issues. Obviously, with Boeing kind of dropping the ball, literally, there is an opportunity for a new, a better service out there. And obviously, Cormac would like to expand in these areas. It would be nice to have a regional jet maker as opposed to just in the U.S. and Europe. For all of these countries, they see quite clearly that the U.S. does not want to play in a fair and constructive way. So they are turning to a regional champion, somebody that they can rely on, and that's China.
Yeah, there are a lot of areas for opportunities and growth between all of these nations. Now, Southeast Asia is among the regions most exposed to Trump's threatened tariffs. Xi is promising to be a, quote, beacon of stability and certainty in the region amid all of this tariff turmoil. But how difficult a position do you think these countries are in? Because they do also rely heavily on U.S. markets for their goods. So do they need to play nice to both sides?
Well, yes. I mean, none of these countries are in a position where they want to come out forcefully against the United States. They've seen exactly what the United States is trying to do to China. I mean, literally now it has escalated to the point where the U.S. is going to Europe and anybody who will listen, Great Britain, and saying, if you want the tariffs down, you have to stop trading with China. It's being resisted, but these kinds of tactics make it very hard for smaller nations to do it. The key here is that ASEAN has to act as a group. That's where its strength has been and will continue to be. And it's not capitulating to one side or another. This kind of on or off switch thinking is not the way that most Asians think. They think about consensus. How do you get to a practical cooperation? These are the approaches that they want, but they have to stand up as a group rather than individually.
That's an excellent point you make. Now, China has been incredibly measured thus far, right, in its tariff response. Everyone knows Trump is the one who instigated all of this, but now the world wants to see some kind of de-escalation. How likely is it, do you think, we see some sort of trade deal get done?
Well, I would say I would 99% certain, and it has nothing to do with Donald Trump's wishes. It has to do with the political realities of the United States. Already, he's facing a backlash from Republican legislators who are saying, look, you're going to ruin our future. We're not going to get reelected. We're going to get killed in this next midterm election if you continue on this kind of suicide path. So, I mean, he's and the American public is not reacting well. There are still loyalists who say, "Oh, well, maybe has some, big plan or something is going to change." And the fact that it isn't. He doesn't have an end result. It's like, his plans for reforming healthcare. After 18 years of complaining about it, the best he could say just before the election is, "I have a framework of concepts." This is his weak point. He doesn't see the end game. He just sees deals.
Yeah, one wonders if he actually knew what he was getting into when he started all of this tariff turmoil. But diplomatically speaking, for Beijing, if a deal does get done, when it gets done, how much does that strengthen China's standing, not just as an economic powerhouse, but also as a global peacemaker willing to engage in conflict resolution, even if this is a mess they didn't create? China could come out looking very good here to the rest of the world.
Well, yes, I mean, but this is China just being China. The fly in the ointment here is the way that Washington's been reacting. So if somebody's acting crazy, of course, no one wants to deal with them, and they go to people or countries that have been, beacons of stability, where what's going to happen next. So the U.S. is shooting itself in its own foot, and it's going to have to change. The question is, when does Donald Trump do that? Now, I believe that China has left some breadcrumbs during that a week and a half ago when they issued that 6-point white paper. They spent 1 point talking about the failure of phase 1. And I think that is an indication that China might be interested in talking about a phase 2, but under conditions where it is civil and it's across the table, not Donald Trump bloviating and calling everybody names and insisting that he's on top.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope rationality prevails at some point. Einar Tangen, thank you so much. We'll leave it there. And a happy Easter to you.
You too.